That's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
You think the worst betrayal is finding lipstick on your husband's collar? Try imagining that the woman spreading your legs in a medical office, the woman you trust with your most intimate health, is actually laughing at you with your spouse. I paid her for years to help me get pregnant, not knowing she was doing everything to keep me infertile while keeping my husband's bed warm. This story will make you fear every doctor's appointment. There is no position in the world more vulnerable than lying on an examination table. Your legs are spread wide, your feet are locked into cold metal stirrups, and you are staring at a ceiling tile that has a water stain shaped like a drowning bird. You are completely exposed. You are literally entrusting your most private, sacred self to another human being. Trust. That's the key word here. You trust that the person in the white coat wants to heal you. You trust that their touch is clinical, not malicious. You trust that when they look at you, they see a patient, not a rival, not a victim. My name is Sarah, and looking back, I realized that the examination room was never a place of healing for me. It was a crime scene, and I was the unsuspecting body being dissected while still alive. Let me take you back to where the nightmare began. Or rather, where I realized the nightmare had been happening all along. It was a rainy Tuesday in November. I was 32 years old, and my husband, Mark, and I had been trying for a baby for 26 months. 26 months of negative tests. 26 months of crying in bathroom stalls at work when my period arrived. 26 months of feeling like a broken machine. Relax, Sarah. You're too tense, Dr. Elena Vance said. Her voice was smooth, like expensive velvet. She was beautiful in that intimidating, sharp way. Ice blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, cheekbones that could cut glass, and eyes that were a piercing, sterile blue. She adjusted the speculum. I winced. Sorry, she said, though her tone lacked any real apology. We need to get a good look at the cervix today. Mark tells me you've been experiencing some cramping after intercourse? I froze. I stared at the ceiling tile. Mark tells me. I blinked, trying to process that through the haze of discomfort. I don't remember telling Mark about the cramping. I thought I just mentioned it in my journal. Dr. Vance paused, just for a microsecond. Her hands, encased in blue latex, stilled. Then she let out a short, dismissive laugh. Oh, honey, husbands notice these things. He called the office yesterday to confirm the appointment and mentioned he was worried about your comfort. He's such a devoted man. You're lucky. Yeah, I whispered. Lucky. But a cold seed of unease planted itself in my stomach. Mark? My Mark? The man who couldn't remember to buy milk unless I texted him 3 times? The man who grew squeamish if I even mentioned the word period? He called my gynecologist to discuss my post-coital cramping? It didn't sound like him. It sounded invasive. Dr. Vance continued the exam. She was thorough, maybe too thorough. Her touch was firm, almost bordering on aggressive. She asked questions that felt standard, yet strangely specific. How is the stress at home, Sarah? Is the intimacy satisfying? Does Mark feel frustrated by the lack of conception? We're managing, I said, gripping the paper sheet covering my waist. We love each other. Of course, she purred. But infertility kills libidos. It destroys marriages. I see it all the time. Men have needs. If they don't get a baby and they don't get pleasure, they wander. She withdrew the instruments. The sound of metal hitting the metal tray echoed in the silent room. She stripped off her gloves with a snap. You can get dressed now. Meet me in my office. I sat up, feeling violated in a way I couldn't articulate. It was just a checkup. She was just a doctor. Why did I feel like I had just been interrogated by a detective who already knew I was guilty? I dressed slowly. My hands were shaking. I pulled on my jeans and my oversized sweater. As I reached for my purse, I noticed something on the small counter where I'd left my things. A smell. It was faint, lingering in the air where Dr. Vance had stood moments before. Santal 33.
Le Labo.
It's a very specific, expensive perfume. Woody, leathery, distinctive. I knew that smell. I knew it because Mark had come home smelling like it 3 nights ago. He told me he had been at a late business dinner with a new client who must have bathed in cologne. He joked about it, saying he needed a shower immediately because he smelled like a hipster lumberjack. I shook my head. Stop it, Sarah, I told myself. It's a popular scent. Half the city wears it. You are projecting. You are hormonal and sad, and you are looking for demons where there are only doctors. I walked into Dr. Vance's private office. It was sleek, modern, decorated in shades of gray and white. Photos of happy babies covered one wall, her success stories. A gallery of taunts for women like me. Sit, she commanded, pointing to the leather chair opposite her desk. She opened my file. Her manicured finger traced the lines of my latest blood work. The FSH levels are concerning, Sarah. And the uterine lining is thin. Very thin. My heart sank. But I've been taking the supplements you prescribed. The special compound from your pharmacy. Yes, she sighed, looking at me with pity that didn't reach her eyes. Biology is cruel. Sometimes a woman's body just rejects the idea of motherhood. It's almost like your system is fighting off the sperm. A hostility. Hostility. What a choice of words. What do we do next? I asked, fighting back tears. IVF. We could, Dr. Vance said, leaning back. She tapped a pen against her lip. A pen that looked expensive. Silver. Monogrammed. But honestly, Sarah, with these numbers it would be a waste of money. Mark works hard for his money, doesn't he? I'd hate to see you drain his savings on a hopeless dream.
I ser det her.
Drain his savings? It's our savings. And we want a child. Does he? She tilted her head. Really? Or does he just want a wife who functions properly? The air left the room. Excuse me? I'm speaking as a medical professional, she said quickly, her voice dropping to a soothing register. Stress affects the outcome. If you force this, you might lose him. Maybe you should take a break. Stop the treatments. Go back on birth control for a few months to regulate your cycle. Birth control? I was baffled. We are trying to conceive. To reset the system, she insisted. Trust me, I'm the expert. I've helped hundreds of women. Sometimes you have to stop trying to get what you want. I left the office in a daze. I felt small. I felt broken. And underneath it all, I felt a simmering, irrational rage. She had spoken to me not like a doctor, but like a rival who was winning a game I didn't know we were playing. I drove home in the rain. When I pulled into the driveway, Mark's car was already there. He was home early. That was rare. I walked into the house. It was quiet. Mark. In the kitchen, babe. I walked in. He was cooking. He never cooked. Pasta. A bottle of red wine was open. Hey, he smiled. A handsome, boyish smile that used to make my knees weak. Now, it just looked practiced. I thought you might have had a rough appointment. Wanted to make dinner. He walked over to kiss me. As he leaned in, I smelled it. Not pasta. Not wine. Underneath the smell of garlic and onions, clinging to the collar of his shirt. Santal 33.
Wood.
Leather. The same smell that was in Dr. Vance's exam room an hour ago. I pulled back, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. You smell nice, I said, testing him. New cologne. Mark froze. Just for a second. His eyes darted to the left. Oh no. Must be the office air freshener. They installed these new diffusers.
Why?
Do you not like it? It's strong, I muttered. I'll go change, he said quickly. Too quickly. As he walked past me to go upstairs, his phone buzzed on the counter. He had left it face up. A text message preview popped up.
He didn't have the number saved.
It was just digits. But the message was visible for exactly 3 seconds before the screen went dark. Did you tell her about the reset? Don't let her pressure you tonight. She's fragile. I stared at the black screen. The reset. Dr. Vance had used the word reset less than 2 hours ago. To reset the system. And she had called me fragile. My hands started to shake, not from cold, but from adrenaline. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't projecting. My husband wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating on me with the woman who was responsible for my reproductive health. They were talking about my treatment. They were coordinating. I felt a wave of nausea, so violent I had to grab the countertop to stay upright. If she was sleeping with him, and she was prescribing me medication, and she was telling me I was hostile to pregnancy, a horrific thought bloomed in my mind. A thought so dark it eclipsed the infidelity. What if I wasn't infertile? What if she was making me infertile? I looked at the bottle of special compound vitamins in my purse. The ones she insisted I buy only from a private dispensary. I didn't open them. I clenched my fist around the bottle. Mark came back downstairs, wearing a fresh t-shirt, smelling of soap. All better, he smiled. So, What did Dr. Vance say today? He looked at me with those lying brown eyes. He was waiting for me to repeat the script she had given me. He wanted to hear me say I was going on birth control. He wanted to hear me give up. I looked at him, and for the first time in our marriage, I lied. I smiled. A shark smile. She said, "Everything looks great, Mark." She thinks I might actually be pregnant already. We just need to wait for the blood test. The color drained from his face. It was the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. "Pregnant," he choked out. But she said, "I thought." "You thought what, honey?" I stepped closer. "You thought I was broken?" "No," he stammered. That's great news." He looked terrified. And in that moment, the war began. I wasn't the patient anymore. I was the detective. I was the prosecutor. And I was going to perform surgery on my own life without anesthesia. Dinner that night was a masterclass in psychological warfare. I sat there, twirling pasta on my fork, humming a lullaby to myself. Mark sat opposite me, pushing food around his plate, his leg bouncing nervously under the table. Every time his phone buzzed, he jumped. "So," I said, taking a sip of water, "if I am pregnant, we'll need to start thinking about the nursery. Maybe we can turn your home office into the baby's room? It has the best light." Mark choked on his wine. "My office? But surely the guest room is better?" "No, I want the best for our miracle," I beamed. Dr. Vance always said we needed a miracle. And look, her vitamins must have finally worked. Mark looked like he wanted to vomit.
Yeah.
Her vitamins. Amazing. He excused himself to go to the bathroom 3 times in 20 minutes. I knew exactly what he was doing. He was texting her. She says she's pregnant. Did the pills fail? What do we do? He was panicking because if I was pregnant, their entire scheme, whatever it was, had failed. But I wasn't pregnant. I was just waking up. The next morning, I waited for Mark to leave for work. He kissed me goodbye on the cheek, his lips cold and dry. "Take it easy today, babe," he said. Don't do anything strenuous. Maybe call Elena? Get a blood test confirmation immediately." "I will," I promised. As soon as his Audi pulled out of the driveway, I ran to the medicine cabinet. I grabbed the bottle of prenatal support compound. Dr. Vance dispensed these herself. She said they were a custom blend from a compounding pharmacy she partnered with. They weren't FDA labeled, just a white bottle with a sticker. Vance Wellness Center, patient, Sarah Miller. Dosage, 1 daily. I poured one out. A small, innocent-looking pink tablet. It looked like candy. It looked like hope. I put it in a Ziploc bag. I didn't go to Dr. Vance's office. I drove 40 minutes to the other side of the city, to a university hospital where my old college roommate, Jess, worked as a pharmacist. I hadn't seen Jess in years. I didn't want to involve her, but I needed someone who wouldn't ask questions or report me to Dr. Vance. "Sarah?" Jess looked at me over the counter, surprised. "God, it's been forever. You look tired." "I need a favor, Jess. A big one. And off the books." I slid the baggie across the counter. "My doctor prescribed these as a fertility booster, but I'm having side effects. I don't trust the label."
Can you analyze it?
"Or at least identify it." Jess frowned, picking up the bag. "Unmarked pills? Sarah, where did you get these?"
Please.
"Just tell me what it is." She sighed. "Give me 20 minutes. I'll run it through the mass spec if the chem lab is open. Or I'll just use the visual identifier database if it's a standard generic." 20 minutes. I sat in the waiting area, my knee bouncing just like Mark's had at dinner. I watched mothers walk by with strollers. I felt a pang of jealousy, so sharp it hurt physically.
For 2 years, I thought my body was failing me.
I blamed myself. I hated myself. What if it wasn't me? Sarah. Jess was back. Her face was pale. She wasn't smiling anymore. She beckoned me into a private consultation room and closed the door. "You said your doctor gave you these for fertility?" she asked, her voice low.
Yes.
She called it a follicle-stimulating compound. Jess slammed the baggie down on the table. "Sarah, this is levonorgestrel. High dosage."
I ser det her blankly.
"I don't know what that means." "It's synthetic progesterone," Jess said, her eyes wide. "It's the active ingredient in Plan B, the morning after pill. But this is a daily dose. And it's mixed with a trace amount of estrogen." The room spun.
Wait.
"Plan B? Birth control?" "It's not just birth control," Jess said, her voice shaking with anger on my behalf. "If you take this every day, You are essentially chemically sterilizing yourself temporarily. It thickens the cervical mucus so sperm can't enter, and it thins the uterine lining so nothing can implant. Sarah, if you've been taking this daily, there is absolutely zero chance you could get pregnant. Zero. I grabbed the edge of the table. 2 years. 730 days. Every morning, I woke up, drank a glass of water, and swallowed this pink pill. I swallowed it praying for a baby. And every single time, I was swallowing the poison that killed that dream. She wasn't treating my infertility. She was causing it. Is it permanent? I whispered. If you stop taking it, your cycle should return. Eventually. But Sarah, this is malpractice. This is criminal. Who prescribed this? I have to go. I grabbed the baggie. Sarah, you need to report this. I ran out. I didn't want to report it.
Not yet.
Reporting it meant an investigation. It meant lawyers. It meant Dr. Vance losing her license in 6 months. That wasn't enough. I wanted her life to burn down. I wanted her to feel the violation I felt. And I wanted Mark to burn with her. I drove home in a fugue state. I didn't cry. I think I had run out of tears. Instead, a cold, dark resolve settled over me. I had the weapon. Now I needed the motive.
Why?
Why would they do this? Was it just so they could have an affair? Mark could have divorced me. We had a prenup, sure, but he would have been fine. Why torture me? Why play this sick game for 2 years? I got home. It was 4 p.m. Mark wouldn't be home until 7 p.m. I walked into his home office. I knew he kept his devices locked down. Face ID, fingerprints, complex passwords. He worked in finance. He was paranoid about security. But Mark was also sentimental. In the bottom drawer of his desk, buried under old tax returns, was his old iPad. The one with the cracked screen he replaced 6 months ago. He never wiped it. He just threw it in the drawer because he was too lazy to recycle it. I pulled it out.
Dead battery.
I plugged it in. The charging icon appeared. I waited. Minutes ticked by like hours. Finally, the Apple logo appeared. It booted up. Passcode required. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried the last 4 digits of his social. Incorrect. iPad is disabled for 1 minute. I close my eyes.
Think, Sarah. Think.
What does Mark love? Himself? His car?
No. Dr. Vance. Anna.
I tried her birthday. I knew it because I sent her a gift basket last year. Like a pathetic idiot. May 12th, 88.
Click.
Unlocked. My stomach dropped. He used his mistress's birthday as the passcode for his backup device. I went straight to iMessage. Because it was an old device, it hadn't updated the latest messages from today. But the history was all there. Years of it. I scrolled back. I saw photos.
Nudes.
Her in her office. Her in our bed when I was away on business trips. But the texts were worse than the photos. Mark. She was crying again last night. Period came. She thinks she's broken. Elena. Poor little thing. Did you give her the pink candy? Mark. Watched her swallow it. She thanked me for being so supportive. It's almost too easy. Elena. Good boy. Keep her on it. If she gets pregnant, she'll get fat and boring. Plus, the inheritance clause, remember? No kids equals you get the trust fund full access if you divorce after 5 years. I froze. The trust fund. My grandmother's trust. Mark had signed a prenup, yes. But my grandmother, who loved Mark, had set up a separate family trust. It stipulated that if we had children, the money went into a trust for them. If we remained childless and divorced after 5 years of marriage, a portion of the assets would be liquidated and split. Or something like that. I never paid attention to the fine print. I trusted him. They weren't just having sex. They were running down the clock. They were keeping me barren so that when Mark finally left me, he could take a chunk of my family's money with him. I scrolled further. Elena, exam today was fun. She's so tight. No wonder you prefer me. Mark. Did you use the large speculum? Elena. Of course. Watching her wince makes me feel powerful. She has no idea I'm looking at the woman you love while I'm touching her. I threw the iPad across the room. It hit the wall and slid down. I ran to the bathroom and retched, dry heaving over the toilet until my throat burned. They were monsters. Sadists. This wasn't an affair. This was abuse. Systemic, medical, sexual abuse. She violated me with instruments while he laughed about it via text. I washed my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. Pale skin, red eyes. You are not a victim, I hissed at my reflection. You are the storm. I heard the garage door open. He was home. I had to go downstairs. I had to pretend I didn't know that he was poisoning me. I had to pretend I didn't know he was planning to rob me. I had to play the pregnant, happy wife. Because I needed one more thing. I needed to catch them in the act. I needed video. Because the iPad was inadmissible, I broke into it. The pills were just pills. Dr. Vance could claim it was a pharmacy error. I needed undeniable proof. And tomorrow, I had an appointment with Dr. Vance. Emergency scan, to check the pregnancy. I formulated a plan. A dangerous one. I would go to the appointment, but I wouldn't be the only one recording. I walked downstairs. Mark was in the kitchen, holding a bouquet of flowers. For the mother-to-be, he exclaimed, looking nervous, but trying to sell it. I took the flowers.
Thank you, darling, I said.
I can't wait to see Elena tomorrow. I hope she finds a heartbeat. Mark flinched. Yeah, he swallowed. Me too. I smelled the flowers. Lilies. Funeral flowers. Oh, Mark, I thought. You have no idea. Walking into the Vance Wellness Center the next morning felt like walking into a slaughterhouse where the cattle are expected to smile at the butcher.
Mark held my hand. His palm was sweaty.
He was vibrating with anxiety. Are you sure you want to do this? He whispered as we sat in the waiting room. Maybe we should wait a few days? No, I said loudly, beaming at the receptionist. I need to see our little poppy seed. I need reassurance. I was wearing a dress with deep pockets. Inside my purse, which sat on my lap, was my phone. I had spent the morning practicing. I had bought a case with a kickstand. If I positioned the purse on the counter, leaving the zipper open, the camera lens had a perfect view of the exam chair and the doctor's stool. Sarah Miller? The nurse called my name. We walked back. Mark tried to stay in the waiting room, but I grabbed his arm. No, honey, you have to be there. You're the father. I pulled him in. He looked like he was walking to the gallows. Dr. Vance was waiting for us. She looked impeccable as always. White coat, red lips, that faint scent of Santal 33. So, she said, her voice tight. Mark tells me we have unexpected news? Yes. I sat on the exam table. I took a home test. Positive. I threw it away because I was so excited, but I know what I saw. I was lying through my teeth. There was no test. Well, Dr. Vance snapped a pair of gloves on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. False positives happen. Hormones are tricky things, especially with your history. She motioned for me to lie back.
Feet up, Sarah.
You know the drill. I put my feet in the stirrups. I spread my knees. I looked at Mark. He was standing by my head, staring at the wall, refusing to look at Elena between my legs. The tension in the room was so thick it felt like static electricity. Cold gel, Elena announced. She squirted the conductive gel onto my stomach for an abdominal ultrasound first. She pressed the transducer down hard. Too hard. Oh, I gasped. Need to get a clear image, she muttered. She moved the wand aggressively. We all looked at the monitor. Static. Gray noise. A black void.
No sac. No pole. No heartbeat.
Just an empty uterus, thanks to the poison she had been feeding me for 2 years. I don't see anything, Sarah, Elena said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy masked as professional detachment. The uterus is empty. The lining is extremely thin. But I felt it. I cried, ramping up the drama. I started to hyperventilate. Check again. Maybe it's hiding. It doesn't work like that, Elena sighed. She wiped the gel off my stomach with a rough paper towel. Sarah, this is what I warned you about. You wanted this so badly you hallucinated a pregnancy. It's a phantom pregnancy. Or maybe a very early chemical miscarriage.
No.
I sobbed, covering my face with my hands. I need a minute. I feel sick. I'm going to throw up. I sat up, grabbing my stomach. I need the bathroom.
Now.
I jumped off the table. In my panicked state, I grabbed my purse, fumbled with it, and slammed it down on the counter next to the ultrasound machine. I'll be right back. I choked out. Take your time, Elena said, rolling her eyes behind my back. I ran into the ensuite bathroom and locked the door. I pressed my ear against the wood. I had left the phone recording video. The camera was pointing directly at them. I couldn't hear them through the door. The office was soundproofed for privacy. But the phone would hear everything. I counted. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Enough time for them to drop their guard. Enough time for the truth to come out. I flushed the toilet. I splashed cold water on my face to simulate tear tracks. I unlocked the door and stepped back into the room. The atmosphere had changed. They were standing close together. Too close. Mark looked pale. Elena looked annoyed. They stepped apart instantly when I entered. Better? Elena asked. I think so. I sniffled.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted it so much. We know, Mark said, his voice hollow. Let's just go home, Sarah. Actually, Elena interrupted. She picked up a chart. Sarah, since the uterus is empty but you're experiencing these symptoms, I'm concerned about retained tissue. Or cysts. I think we should schedule a DNC procedure for next week. Just to scrape everything clean. Reset the lining. I froze. A DNC, dilation and curettage. A surgical procedure to remove tissue from the uterus. Is that necessary? I asked. It is if you ever want to try again, Elena said firmly. We need to clear out the old, hostile lining. It's a simple surgery. I'll put you under, and 20 minutes later, you'll be fresh as a daisy. I looked at her hands. Her surgeon's hands. She wanted to put me under anesthesia. She wanted to take sharp instruments to my womb. I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that if I let her perform that surgery, I would never have children. She would accidentally scar me. She would ensure the sterilization was permanent. Okay, I whispered. Schedule it.
Elena smiled.
A genuine smile this time. A smile of victory. Excellent. I'll have the receptionist set it up for Tuesday. I walked over to the counter. I'm ready to go, Mark. I grabbed my purse. My finger brushed the phone. It was warm. It was still recording. We walked out of the clinic. The drive home was silent. Mark turned on the radio to drown out the quiet. He thought I was grieving a fake baby. He thought he had won. When we got home, I told Mark I needed to lie down. I'll take a nap in the guest room, I said. I don't want to be disturbed. Sure, babe. Rest up. He looked relieved to be away from me. I locked the guest room door. I put on my noise-canceling headphones. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. Video saved. 12 minutes long. I pressed play. I watched myself run out of the room on the screen. The door clicked shut. For 5 seconds, silence. Then, Elena's voice. Clear as a bell. Elena. God, she is exhausting. I felt it. Please. She's hysterical. Mark. You sure she's not pregnant? You checked. Elena. Mark, look at the screen. Her lining is thinner than paper. The compound is working perfectly. She couldn't grow a chia pet in there, let alone a human. I watched Mark on the screen. He ran a hand through his hair. Mark. Good. I nearly had a heart attack when she said she took a test. How much longer do we have to do this? The 5-year mark is in 2 months. I want the divorce, Elena. I want the money, and I want out.
Elena, patience, lower.
We need the DNC. Mark. Why? If she's not pregnant, why the surgery?
Elena Lauged.
I watched her on the screen, leaning against the counter, playing with her stethoscope. Elena, because pills can be missed. Bodies can be resilient. I don't want to take chances. During the DNC, I'm going to introduce a mild scarring agent to the fallopian tubes. Asherman's syndrome. It will look like a complication from the surgery.
Sad, tragic, irreversible.
She will be 100% sterile. Then you divorce her for being unable to give you a family, triggering the emotional hardship clause in the prenup. You get the sympathy, you get the payout, and we get to go to Italy. Mark paused. He looked at the floor. Mark. Will it hurt her? Elena. She'll be asleep. She won't feel a thing. And afterwards? Who cares? She's just a vessel, Mark. And a broken one at that. She walked over to him. She kissed him. Deeply. Right there in the exam room where I had just been crying. Elena. Tuesday. Once I cut her open, we are free. I paused the video. I took off my headphones. The silence in the room was deafening. They weren't just stealing my fertility.
They were planning to mutilate me.
To cut me open and scar me permanently so they could buy a villa in Italy with my grandmother's money. I looked at the calendar on the wall. Today was Thursday. The surgery was scheduled for Tuesday. I had 4 days. I could go to the police now. I had the evidence. But the police take time. Arrests, bails, lawyers. Elena Vance had money. She had high-powered attorneys. She might plea bargain. She might keep her license.
No.
I didn't want justice. I wanted destruction. I wanted to perform a procedure on them, a DNC of their lives. I wanted to scrape them clean of everything they had. I wiped my tears. Tuesday, I whispered. I wouldn't be on that operating table on Tuesday, but someone would be going down. I picked up my phone. I dialed a number, not the police.
Not yet.
I dialed the number of the state medical board. And then I dialed the number of my grandmother's estate lawyer. Hello, Mr. Henderson? This is Sarah. We need to talk about the trust fund. And I need you to hire a private investigator. Tonight. The victim died in that clinic today. The executioner was born. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. For days. 96 hours. That's how long I had to live in a house with the man who wanted to cut me open.
I don't know how I did it.
I think a part of me shut down. I became an actress in my own life. I cooked dinner. I watched movies. I let him kiss me on the forehead. Every time he touched me, I imagined him in a jail cell. It was the only way I didn't vomit. I met Mr. Henderson, my grandmother's lawyer, in a diner 3 towns over on Saturday morning. I played him the recording. The old man, who had seen everything in his 40-year career, actually turned pale. He took off his glasses and wiped them with a shaking hand. Sarah, he said, his voice grave. This is conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm. This is medical battery.
Fraud.
If we go to the police now, they will arrest them.
No, I said.
If we arrest them now, Elena claims it was just talk. Just a bad joke. She claims the DNC was medically necessary. She walks away with a slap on the wrist and a suspended license. What do you want, child? I want them to attempt it. I said, cold as ice. I want her to prep the scarring agent. I want Mark to sign the consent forms knowing what she's going to do. I want them caught with a scalpel in hand. Henderson looked at me. He saw the fire in my eyes. That is incredibly dangerous, Sarah. I'm not afraid of them anymore. Set it up. Tuesday morning arrived. The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with rain.
Fitting.
Mark drove me to the Vance Wellness Center. He was practically vibrating with nervous energy. He was humming along to the radio. You'll feel so much better after this is done, babe, he said, squeezing my knee. A fresh start. For both of us. Yes. I stared out the window. A fresh start. We walked into the clinic. It smelled of lavender and antiseptic. The smell of deception. The receptionist, a sweet girl named Becky who had no idea she was working for a monster, smiled at me. Good morning, Mrs. Miller. We have you prepped for OR3. Thank you, Becky. We went back to the pre-op holding area. I changed into the humiliating hospital gown. Open at the back. I put my clothes, my armor into a plastic bag. I lay down on the gurney. The nurse came in to start my 4. Just saline for now. Mark stood by my side, holding my hand. His palm was clammy. Then, Dr. Vance entered. She was wearing surgical scrubs.
Blue.
A matching cap covered her blonde hair. She looked clinical. Efficient.
Deadly.
Good morning, Sarah. How are we feeling? Nervous, I said. My heart monitor beeped a little faster. That wasn't acting. I was terrified. If the police were late, if the signal failed, she would put me to sleep. And I might wake up broken. Or I might not wake up at all. Standard procedure, Elena said breezily, checking my chart. We'll put you under twilight sedation. You won't feel a thing. 20 minutes, in and out. She turned to Mark. Mark, I need you to sign the final consent forms. Since Sarah will be sedated, we need your authorization for any unexpected surgical necessities. This was the trap. I watched Mark. He took the clipboard. He looked at the paper. The clause was standard, but in this context, it was a death warrant for our marriage. I authorized Dr. Elena Vance to perform necessary procedures. He knew necessary procedures meant sterilization. He didn't hesitate. He signed his name, Mark Miller, with a flourish. Done, he said, handing it back. He just signed away my future. And his freedom. Excellent, Elena said. She looked at the nurse. Becky, you can go prep the recovery room. I'll handle the anesthesia induction myself. It's a delicate case, and Sarah is anxious. I want to make sure she's comfortable. Becky nodded and left. It was just the 3 of us. The victim, the husband, the mistress. Elena walked over to the metal tray. I watched her. She picked up a syringe. It wasn't the standard propofol vial. It was a preloaded syringe she had taken from her pocket. The scarring agent? Or a heavy dose of sedative to keep me quiet while she did her work. Okay, Sarah, Elena said, walking toward my foreline. Her eyes were cold, devoid of humanity. Count backward from 10 for me. Mark leaned over and kissed my forehead. The kiss of Judas. Sleep tight, honey. Elena uncapped the needle. She aimed for the port on my fore. 3 inches away. 2 inches. My heart was pounding so hard the monitor was screaming. Beep, 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 beep. You're elevating, Elena frowned. Relax. It's almost over. I looked at her. I looked directly into her blue eyes. Elena, I said. My voice was steady.
Strong. She paused.
Yes. Does the chemical scarring agent hurt? Silence. Absolute, vacuum-sealed silence.
Elena froze.
The needle hovered an inch from my arm. Mark's smile vanished. What? The agent you're going to use to induce Asherman syndrome? I continued, looking at Mark now. To trigger the emotional hardship clause in the prenup. Does it burn? Or do I just wake up barren? Elena pulled the needle back instinctively. Her face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. You're hysterical. And you, Mark, I said, sitting up on the gurney, ripping the 4 tape slightly. Did you really think I wouldn't check the vitamins? Did you think I wouldn't check the old iPad? Sarah? Mark backed away, his hands up. You're confused. It's the stress. I know everything, I hissed. I know about the pills. I know about the texts. I know about the Italy plan. And I know you just signed a legal document authorizing a surgery I don't need. Elena dropped the syringe. It clattered on the metal tray. Get the sedative, she snapped at Mark. She's having a psychotic break. We need to sedate her now. Don't touch me, I screamed. Elena grabbed a vial of something else. She was panicking. She needed to knock me out. If I was asleep, she could spin this. She could say I was delirious. She lunged for my arm. Hold her down, Mark. Mark grabbed my shoulders. He was strong. Desperation made him rough. Just relax, Sarah. Stop fighting. I was fighting 2 of them. Elena was jamming the needle toward my arm again. Do it now. I screamed at the ceiling vent.
Crash.
The double doors to the operating room flew open. They didn't just open. They were kicked open. Police. Drop the needle. Step away from the patient. 4 officers in tactical vests stormed the small room. Detective Miller, no relation to Mark, thank God, led the charge, his gun drawn. Elena Vance, drop it. Elena shrieked and threw the syringe across the room like it was burning her. Mark released me and stumbled back, tripping over the 4 stand. The machine crashed to the floor. Hands in the air.
Now.
I sat on the gurney, clutching my hospital gown. I watched as they grabbed Mark. He was crying. Actually crying. I didn't do anything. I was just holding her hand. She's crazy. Save it for the judge, dirtbag. The detective growled, slamming Mark against the wall to cuff him. 2 officers grabbed Elena. She was struggling, screaming about her rights, about her license. You can't do this. I'm a doctor. This is my clinic. Not anymore, I said. The room went quiet for a second. Elena looked at me. Her hair was messy, her scrubs wrinkled. The Ice Queen had melted into a puddle of fear. You set me up, she whispered. You bitch. No, Elena, I said, pulling the sensor off my finger. The heart monitor flatlined, a long, steady tone echoing in the room. I just scheduled an appointment. I hopped off the gurney. My legs were shaky, but I stood tall. I walked over to the metal tray. I pointed to the syringe on the floor. Detective, I said. Test that. I think you'll find it's not standard anesthesia. Bag it, the detective ordered. They dragged them out. Mark in handcuffs, sobbing like a child. Elena in handcuffs, spitting venom. I stood alone in operating room 3. I looked at the ultrasound machine. I looked at the stirrups. I took a deep breath. The air still smelled of antiseptic. But for the first time in 2 years, it smelled clean. I walked over to where my clothes were bagged. I dressed slowly. I walked out into the lobby. Becky, the receptionist, was standing there, horrified, watching her boss being shoved into a squad car. She looked at me. Mrs. Miller? What happened? I'm canceling my next appointment, Becky, I said, adjusting my coat. And I think you should start looking for a new job. I walked out into the rain. It was pouring. A deluge. I let it soak me. I wanted to wash every trace of that place off my skin. I was wet, I was cold, and I was alone. but I was whole. The trial lasted 3 weeks. It was the lead story on the local news every single night. They called it the Womb Raider case. Sensationalist, trashy, but accurate. I sat in the front row every day. I wanted them to see me. I wanted to be the first thing they saw when they walked in and the last thing they saw when they were let out. The evidence was overwhelming. The video from the exam room played on giant screens for the jury. I watched the jurors' faces. They recoiled. One woman in the back row cried when she heard Elena describe me as a vessel. But the nail in the coffin was the syringe. The lab analysis revealed it contained a high concentration of acetic acid mixed with a saline solution. It wasn't a sedative. It was essentially industrial-strength vinegar. If she had injected that into my uterus, it would have burned the lining chemically. It would have caused massive scarring, pain, and permanent, irreversible sterility. She wasn't just going to stop me from having kids. She was going to burn me from the inside out. When the verdict was read, Mark cried. He slumped forward onto the defense table, sobbing about how he was manipulated by an evil woman. Elena didn't cry. She stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched. She knew the game was over.
Guilty.
On all counts: attempted aggravated battery, conspiracy to commit fraud, medical malpractice. The judge gave them 12 years each. "You've violated the most sacred trust between a doctor and a patient," the judge told Elena. "And you," he looked at Mark with pure disgust, "violated the sacred vow of marriage for greed. You are both a danger to society." As the bailiffs led them away, Mark looked back at me. "Sarah, please," he mouthed.
I'm sorry.
I didn't blink. I didn't wave. I just turned my back and walked out of the courtroom into the blinding sunlight. But prison wasn't enough. I sued them. I sued Elena for medical negligence and emotional distress. Her malpractice insurance didn't cover criminal acts, so I went after her personal assets. I took her house. I took her car. And I took the Vance Wellness Center. I sold the building to a developer who bulldozed it to the ground. It's a parking lot now. I like to drive by sometimes and park right where her office used to be. It feels poetic. As for Mark, the prenup he was so obsessed with had an infidelity and abuse clause. If he was found guilty of either, he forfeited his share of our marital assets. He went to prison with $0 in his commissary account. I kept the house, the cars, the savings, and most importantly, my grandmother's trust fund remained untouched. Recovery wasn't easy. For the first 6 months, my body was a war zone. Coming off the high-dose synthetic hormones was brutal. My hair fell out in clumps. My skin broke out. I had mood swings that terrified me. I spent nights lying on the bathroom floor, wondering if they had broken me permanently. Wondering if my ovaries had shriveled up and died from 2 years of chemical suppression. But the human body is a miracle. It wants to heal. Slowly, the fog lifted. My cycle returned. My energy returned. I started painting again. I adopted a dog, a scruffy terrier named Barnaby, who doesn't care about my uterine lining, only about biscuits. And I met David. David is an architect. He's kind. He has warm hands and a gentle laugh. He knows everything. I told him on our 3rd date because I couldn't handle secrets. I told him I might be barren. I told him I have trust issues that could fill a library. He didn't run. He just held my hand and said, "Okay, we'll figure it out."
It's been 2 years since the arrest.
This morning, I woke up feeling off. My coffee smelled terrible. The smell of the brewing grounds made my stomach flip. I felt a familiar ache in my chest. I tried to ignore it. I didn't want to hope. Hope is dangerous. Hope is what got me hurt the first time. But David noticed. He went to the pharmacy without saying a word and came back with a box. "Just check," he said softly, "for peace of mind." I went into the bathroom. I locked the door. Old habits die hard. I peed on the stick. I set it on the counter. I closed my eyes and counted to 300. I remembered the cold metal of the stirrups. I remembered the smell of Santal 33. I remembered Elena's voice saying, "She couldn't grow a chia pet in there." I opened my eyes. 2 lines.
Bold. Dark.
Unmistakable. I sank to the floor, clutching the plastic stick. I didn't cry. I laughed. A deep, guttural laugh that shook my whole body. It wasn't a phantom. It wasn't a trick. My body had won. The poison was gone. The hostility was gone. I was a vessel, yes, but not a broken one. I was a vessel for life. I unlocked the door. David was standing in the hallway, looking worried. I held up the stick. He froze. Then he smiled, a real smile, not a practiced one. He picked me up and spun me around. We are going to have a baby. And I know exactly which doctor will deliver it.
Me.
Well, not medically. But I will be the one in charge. No more blind trust. No more silence. I kept the recording of Mark and Elena on a hard drive in my safe. Someday, maybe I'll delete it. But for now, I keep it as a reminder. A reminder that they tried to end my bloodline. They tried to erase my future. And they failed. They are rotting in a concrete cell, watching their youth fade away. And me? I'm just getting started.
Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.